Hey everybody, thank you all for joining. It's Tuesday, that means OCTA. Let's break this down. There's a lot of weird stuff happening in the market. Things are going in opposite directions, which is bizarre. Crypto market cap is 2.16 trillion. It's back under that 2.2 trillion volume, 75 billion, which is average. ETH 2400, which is low, but above the 2260, where we call the bottom anyway. And ETH dominance is 13.5%. Keeps going down while all the others keep going up, as in the other altcoins that have a real, at least much more adoption. Crypto Fear and Greed is 49, so that's Fear and Greed 49. That is neutral, I think. And what else? Yeah, MicroStrategy is up 5%. It's been on fire lately. It's nearly at $200. And remember, last time it was at $200. Bitcoin was at 74K. Now there's more shares out there. It's bizarre. They bought more Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's at what, 61, 62K, and MicroStrategy's at 200. It's bizarre. But the big story today is there another gray swan on the horizon? That's what we're going to try and tackle. Let's jump in. Disclaimer, not financial advice. Just a yobbo on the internet. And thank you to everyone on Patreon who make this possible every single day. CJ Core says, becoming a Patreon member was one of the best decisions I've ever made. Thank you so much. And we have had some life-changing moments over the last couple of years. Some bumpy ones too. But we're in all the right assets at the right time, which is really what matters. And allocations matter. Thank you, Linda, as well, for coming. Thank you, T&D Tesla and Sean Donnelly as well. Let's get into the ugly news first of all. Big unlocks as usual. Every week, we have XAI, never heard of. Big unlock coming for those guys. Optimism, also about 20 million. Nothing too big. Euler, every week is there. No point in even mentioning it. IO is also 5.2 million unlock. Aptos, 103 million unlock. But Aptos has been on fire as well. Cardano has a little unlock as well. And Near Protocol. That is the reigning tokens forever for some of these names. Anyhow, let's talk about some bad news, because we're in the ugly section of the story. And Zeno, good to see you, buddy. This is the Supreme Court. Supreme Court has cleared the path for the U.S. to sell $4.4 billion in seized Silk Road Bitcoin. That is 69,370 Bitcoin. That is 20,000 bigger than the German Bitcoin bag that was sold. The question is, could this be the gray swan that could derail October or Uptober? We're not sure. Now, they're cleared their way to dump it. Much of the coins have been moved to places where they could be dumped or sold pretty fast. And that could take the price down. So that could be a big gray cloud over us, which you know what that means. That means buying opportunity. So when things like this dump, it can be pretty ugly, pretty scary for some people, but that's when we stack. But we also hedge to protect against such downsides as well. So watch this very carefully. Of course, we'll be on it here. Now, I do believe, considering some of the narratives spoken about during the Bitcoin conference, if the current party in power were to dump Bitcoin ahead of the election, and we're out like 27 days to go, that would be a bad luck. A bad luck. Not bad luck, L-U-C-K, luck, L-O-O-K, in case I came out wrong. So I don't know if they're going to do that. They might sell 10,000 Bitcoin or something, but not the whole bag. And that wouldn't be prudent as well. The way Germany did it, yeah, they sold it too fast. Anyhow, shout out to everybody in Germany and the US and Spain and Liverpool and everywhere else. Now, in other news too, this is the SEC tyranny continues. From Watcher Guru, Crypto.com receives a Wells notice from the SEC. All the SEC does is kick out Wells notices all the time. Hey, Kai, thank you for coming. Who cares? But you know what's really good is when firms like Ripple and Coinbase and now Crypto.com, you know what they do? They say, we're not dealing with this tyranny anymore. We're fighting back. So shout out to Crypto.com for doing that. Just in, literally hours later, Crypto.com files lawsuits against the SEC to protect the future of crypto in the US. And yes, that is what I care about. I care about people, I care about freedom, and I care about financial freedom for the people that watch this channel. Okay, sometimes things will get political. Sometimes I may say things about, I don't know, certain people. Because if they get in the way of financial freedom, I do not like it. Not being political, I just want to remove the roadblocks, okay? The SEC are not here to protect you. If they were, they would have in 2021, and they didn't. All right? Now, after the ugly news section, let's get into the bad news. A little bit of bad news. First of all, fear and greed is, well, from fear to neutral. But neutral isn't that exciting. But anyway, I threw that in here because I wouldn't have enough bad news. And crypto market over the last 7 days was pretty bad. Everything based against Bitcoin. ETH down 7%, TON down, Cardano down, dark red, Solana down, dark red. Everything kind of underperformed. So Bitcoin, in relative terms, had a pretty good week. In dollar terms, or as I call melting ice cubes, you can see Bitcoin down 2.3% for the week. ETH down 7%, etc., etc. So it was not a good week. And why was it not a good week? Because there's a huge correlation between what I call follow the money and results. But there's also some good news that's coming in a second too. So hold tight. Digital asset fund flows, they were down, but they saw minor outflows, down about $147 million last week. And that was because of better than expected economic data. So this is now when good news is bad news again. Let me explain in case you missed it before. That is when good job numbers come out, then the chance of a certain amount of rate cuts drops, and that triggers so-called negative sentiment. So good news, jobs were good. Bad news, rate prospects come down, not cut, but odds of cut come down. So that's the calculus behind that. Let's get into the good news. Favorite part. Thank you as well. Plastic to Bitcoin. First of all, what's happened so far year to date? It's a new section. Shout out to Sanjay as well, just to give us a tabs on where we are. And it's been quite a strange year, but overall a very good year. I want people who are frustrated out there and saying, "Oh, the market sucks. Oh, good." Check these numbers out. S&P up 20% year to date. Okay, NASDAQ, exactly the same. Bizarre. NASDAQ normally outperforms S&P 500, but here we are. Gold, up a whopping 28.4%. This puppy sleeps for 10 years and then it pops, but it's a reflection of how much, geopolitical uncertainty there is out there on the planet. 10-year back up of 4%. That is not good. That ties back to the good jobs data that I mentioned in the previous slide. Also, Bitcoin up 39.3%. for the year. That's double what the S&P 500 is and double what the Qs did. Ethereum up 6.6% of the year, crushing disappointment for everybody. And yeah, there's a reason we ditched Ethereum to the dismay of many. But again, and Solana up 41.2%. We chase alpha here. I don't care what form it is, as long as it doesn't hurt people, like cigarette cancer sticks or weapons of destruction or things like that. Chinese stocks, why not? Vitruvian Maniac, thank you for coming too. You're wonderful. Let's look at some more news. Let's check in on our ETF. We had a $250 million day yesterday for the spot ETF. I think it was the 18th or 19th best day ever, which isn't bad from 168 days. Or is it 186 days? I think it's 186 days. Sorry about that. I'm getting my numbers backwards. A little dyslexia kicking in there. But that's okay. So a big rebound, and 3,777 Bitcoin were consumed yesterday. I love that number, and you can't make that number up. That's the exact average price of Bitcoin during the day, with the total amount of ETF inflow divided by the average price during the day yesterday, gives exactly 3,777 Bitcoin, which is, again, a pretty good day, considering only 450 Bitcoin are issued a day, and this is just across 9 ETFs. Pretty stunning. And in other very stunning news, I mean, the JP Morgan fellows are a little bit schizophrenic. They've been bearish. They've been calling for super storms, super hurricanes, super disasters. Yes, they probably got it from a meteorological perspective, but not from a market perspective. They've been completely wrong. This is what makes me a little bit afraid, because all of a sudden JP Morgan have flipped bullish because they've been wrong for years. And now JP Morgan analysts predict Bitcoin gains in Q4 as October trend takes hold. Did they not just see the Supreme Court ruling and the potential of some dumpage and the fact that Bitcoin is still, chugging along? not exactly on fire. By the way, let me check on the markets. Bitcoin just fell below 62K as I started here. So I do think things will be very good in Q4, but we have that new cloud on the horizon. And we just got rid of one cloud too, potentially as well. We'll get to that in a second. Also, October, shout out to Titan of Crypto. October is typical breakout month when we look at history here. And if we go back to the first halving, the second halving, the third halving, the fourth halving, that's when things kick off. Now, as I did mention before, sometimes it doesn't happen until the 9th of October or the 16th of October or the 11th of October. And here we are. But Titan of Crypto does believe October could be the month that ignites Bitcoin's explosive rally as we wrap up the year. But my theory is... Here's my face from Aussie Man Reviews. My theory is, I think until the elections happen, there'll be a lid on the action. I don't think people are going to YOLO into the markets until they find out exactly what's going to happen, because the difference between the two different teams are quite disparate, and both will have an effect on the markets, depending on which way it goes as well, which we'll get into in a second too. A lot of stuff. Now, the big other gray cloud that had a lot of people worried. This was the HBO documentary about basically doxing who Satoshi Nakamoto is. This is from Len Sussman's widow, Meredith Patterson, says her late husband was not Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, she has always maintained this, and as far as she knows, and Len was a master of hiding things. So perhaps, I'm not saying he is or he isn't, but he's a cryptographer, so he's very good at, keeping things concealed. So the fact that she says it could be two ways. One, she either didn't know, or two, she does know and she's not disclosing it as well. We don't know. The mystery remains, which is a good thing for Bitcoin as well. That's why it's in the good news. And we're going to talk a bit about adoption today, because this is so critical to everything. When you invest in disruption, okay, you want to be in before the S-curve kicks off. And here is some exciting adoption news for you all. 83% of millennials hold crypto. And this is from BlackRock. If you are a financial advisor and you do not know about digital assets, it's going to be very hard to bring on some new young customers. So shout out to all the millennials out there. 83% of you. And that means all the elections happening around the planet, if your platform is anti-crypto, you are not going to get the millennial vote. And that's just simple mathematics. Also, another adoption news too. MatrixPort come out and they said that crypto adoption is now at 7.51% on planet Earth. 7.51% of the Earth are now using digital currencies. And things are about to go mainstream, 8% next year, maybe before the end of the year. And then it's a financial revolution. But what is so critical about that 8% level? Again, S-curves. It's like BEV adoption. Exact same thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is, hey, Super Soul Man, you're too kind. This is adoption by 2032, should hit 40 to 50% from Blockware Solutions. This chart, may I remind you, is from 2022. Okay, not today. So I added a little green arrow. I hope the team at Blockware do not mind. But basically, what happens next? When you get to that 8 to 10%, you go vertical. And you go straight vertical up to 80%. Straight up. And that's when things will really kick off. The next decade, ladies and gentlemen, will be exciting. We'll get to 50% crypto adoption probably by 2032. But I have even more good news, if it wasn't enough already. This is, again, from BlackRock. BlackRock is the new Bitcoin and crypto digital asset marketing department. So shout out to BlackRock for, I shouldn't say pumping our bags, but I will. Pumping our bags. Here we go. And this is their chart. It's a bit shady because I scraped it off a video from Brazil and a conference to their investors. But what they're basically saying here is the adoption trajectory of crypto is unprecedented. That is the thick, fat yellow line there. It's above the blue line, which is mobile phones, and the green line, which is internet. But there's a couple of things here that I do want to point out is why is adoption faster for digital assets? So the theory is maybe because we're living in a digital world and the two previous revolutions, internet and mobile phones, created that digital world. They built the platform. Now that the platform, the foundation is in place, it's easier for people to adopt. And in other news too, that BlackRock also mentioned in this conference, they talked about, again, the millennials. They're about to inherit a truckload of cash from the boomers. And you know where they're going to stick it? Crypto. So again, if we didn't have the S-curve adoption of crypto and the tailwinds of millennials inheriting a bunch of money, the future's bright, everybody. So hang tight and don't worry about the small little stuff. And I just want to mention this. I haven't mentioned this for a few weeks, but we put together a unique piece of content which has never been done in the history of the world. Over 10,000 people have already completed this investment persona, and you can find out who you are, what legendary investment you are like, and also identify your blind spots to shore that up, which again, shout out to Ray Dalio. He said the most important thing as an investor is not to know what you're good at, but to know where you have a weakness. Shore up that weakness. So check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Be number 10,000. Now, Bitcoin did have a good week versus altcoins. You can see here the chart. Oh, I forgot to mention, this is completely free to use. There's no catch at all. Bitcoin had a good week versus altcoins, and the alt season indicator is at 33. Let's look at the breakdown. As you can see, over the last 90 days, SUI crushed it up 170%. Number 2 is Tau. Part of that is because Grayscale opened up an AI fund. Of course, that's a big position in it. And then Aave is still there at number 3. And then on the far right-hand side, you've got Pole. I think is that the new Matic? I think it might be. Pole fell. Cosmos fell. Toncoin fell. Polkadot fell as well a lot over the last 90 days. So again, we're seeing, as usual, narratives and new technology are crushing it. And that's just how the world works, everybody. Let's look at the narratives. Speaking of narratives, AI is still number 1, up 47% over the last month. Bitcoin up about 12%. ETH up 5% over the last month. And that's where we are in terms of narratives. Again, every narrative runs out of steam after a big run, so expect this to change over the next month, is my forecast. And in some adoption data, which is critical to look at, a couple of things to point out here. You still have Solana with nearly 4 million daily active users. Near is number 2. Tron is number 3. But what's interesting is SUI was over 1 million users a few days ago. It's fallen to 458,000, which is almost the same amount of adoption that Bitcoin has. And Aptos has eclipsed SUI up to 483,000. And a shout out to our friends at Cardano for playing along. Anyway, the point is the new technology is growing fast, adopted fast. But even within the new players, they're switching seats all the time. For SUI to go from over 1 million to 450 in a few days is pretty startling. So again, you got to look at consistent adoption over time. It's pretty important. And speaking of Solana too, still the leading horse out there. The price action doesn't represent that, but hopefully it will one day, and I'll share a little news release as well. But this is what I call the black hole sun. Over $100 million has been bridged from all of the chains to Solana in the last 7 days, including more than 70 million from Ethereum. So you can nearly, I wish I actually should try to do this, is map the money flow out of Ethereum into Solana and then overlay that on a chart of ETH and Sol and money flow. Because I always say, follow the money, follow the adoption, follow the developers. It's not hard, folks. It's not hard. But there are some exceptions to that rule. There are some chains that develop a lot, but they're developing the wrong things. So that can happen too. So beware of that. You can build stuff, but it doesn't mean that they will come, as we used to say back in the 90s. Now, speaking of other news too, Standard Chartered, who are huge crypto bulls, Bitcoin bulls, etc., their analyst, Geoff Kendrick, predicts Solana's price could increase 5-fold by the end of 2025. So going from where are we now? It's Solana, 145. Yeah, $700 at least. That would be pretty impressive. But he said much of this hinges on who wins the election. And if a certain person wins, things will be good. And if a certain person maybe doesn't win, maybe not so good. But either way, Bitcoin should be fine. And Kendrick also noted that Solana Fire Dancer there will help increase throughput 400x, which will establish dominance across sectors like finance, consumer services, and decentralized physical infrastructure, which is huge. So we'll see. But again, the positive thing about this that I take away from it is he's talking about to the end of 2025. So hopefully the bull run lasts to the end of 2025. I think it'll be over before then, but we'll see. We'll be monitoring it daily, so you don't have to. Next, flow by asset. Solana, Moto, thanks for coming. Solana leads again. Investors focused on Bitcoin. Outflows down 159 million, 30 million nearly out of Ethereum. And Solana, positive, up 5.3 million. Short Bitcoin, up 2.8. Again, when that goes up, expect Bitcoin to fall a little bit. And then the rest are kind of crumbs. And multi-asset was kind of big too, but that could be anything, so it's hard. But Ethereum was not spared from the negative trend as well. And they did have, I think the week before was a little positive for Ethereum, but that was short-lived. So again, ETH, the point of this is the ETH ETF doesn't help things. And that means if people are looking forward to like a Sol ETF or something else, it doesn't mean it's going to help stuff. Or maybe it will. We'll see when that time comes. But again, per Kendrick here, Geoff Kendrick, much of it hinges on what happens next, which ties to the tyranny of the SEC at the very beginning. If we can change out the SEC, it'll help us do more in the crypto world and get more adoption, which is a big part of today's story. Now, speaking of adoption too, the wallet, as I've always said, is completely core to crypto adoption. And shout out to Dinam84 in Discord. But Jupiter Exchange launches the Jupiter mobile app, and this enables users to easily on-ramp to Solana blockchain by paying via Apple Pay, Google Pay, PayPal, credit card, debit card, etc., swapping crypto, swapping everything, perp trading, DCAing. It's big. The world is digital. The world is mobile, as we've shared. And this is huge. In order to have a world-class wallet, if you try to use Phantom on Jupiter, and then you go to another chain and try to use something like MetaMask, it's just brutally painful. So wallets are everything, and Jupiter, with the integrated wallet capabilities across the entire blockchain, is going to be great for adoption too. Speaking of more adoption as well, Bahrain launches Bitcoin product. We discussed this a little bit yesterday, not the Bahrain product, but how the law has changed. So now Bitcoin is accepted under apparently Sharia law. Shout out to Marty Party who mentioned that. But the National Bank of Bahrain launches the first Bitcoin investment product. See how these things work? Once the religion says, you're good to go, boom, the day later, the fund pops up. So shout out to everybody in Bahrain having access to Bitcoin now too. Fantastic news. And FTX update, more news. The meeting was had yesterday. The bankruptcy plan is to start payments in December, not sooner. 2% has been paid back, and customers will get 119% back. And that's all she wrote. Payments up to about $16.5 billion. And much of this in December will find its way back into crypto. But I feel bad for the people waiting for their payment, because if they have to sit and watch the crypto prices go up between now and December, it can be quite frustrating not be able to get on the boat in time. So fingers crossed. I shouldn't say this, but it'd be nice if prices stay kind of flat and then pop when these people get the money back. Anyway, let's look at stocks real quick. This is interesting. Tesla's down 5% ahead of the biggest AI event ever, many believe. And NVIDIA, the other AI play, is smoking hot, breaking out above 133 today. Very strange. Amazon down, Apple down, Microsoft down, Google down, Meta up, and Tesla down. So the market is kind of weird. JP Morgan, speaking of them earlier, they're up 1.5% over the last week too. So stocks are mixed. But let's talk about the other big story, which is those companies that put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. First of all, I call this the MicroStrategy Playbook. players, new term, from Cointelegraph. Today, a Bitcoin financial services company has submitted an S4 filing to the SEC. You submit that when you want to IPO. And this company is called Fold, and their corporate treasury has over 1,000 Bitcoin. Yes, it's a small company, but that's a nice bag of Bitcoin. These treasuries are everywhere. We've got Sol Strategies, we've got Medical One, we have MetaPlanet, we have so many. And we're so early. Talk about adoption of the MicroStrategy playbook, so early. But there's more. Let's talk about MicroStrategy. Again, if you watch this channel for the last 3 years since we started, you probably have a nice big 7-digit bag of MicroStrategy. 5 years ago, MicroStrategy had $5 million in cash. Today, they hold over $15 billion in Bitcoin, aka digital cash. And their stock is up 1,200% with no signs of slowing down, especially today. And 5 years from today, Bitcoin treasury strategy will be the norm. And Saylor is leading the way. And shout out to Mason Carter for this beautifully eloquent tweet. It is bonkers. It is bonkers. And again, I was watching them in August 2020. And I started trading MicroStrategy in September 2020. My third ever video was about a MicroStrategy trade I did. That's it. It's hard to believe it's so long ago, but so short ago. But anyway, it's great. But there's more about this too. Bernstein came out today as well. And they said MicroStrategy's $16 billion Bitcoin hoard will drive the stock up 64% on top of where it is now. So if you add 64% to what is approximately $200 right now, you can do the math of how high we're going to go. Actually, for the kids at home who are playing along, imagine an asset is at $200, because I know a lot of parents watch with their kids. Your asset's $200, MicroStrategy stock, $200. If it goes up by 64%, what is the price? Drop a comment below. I'll check them all and correct your work if there's any problems. But I won't disclose what the number is. But the firm is definitely one of the top 10 holders of digital asset with a stash worth $16 billion. And Saylor pioneered the Bitcoin treasury model for corporates. And the team at Bernstein believe we have a long way to go. They also believe Bitcoin's going to $1 million by 2032, 2033. And they also believe that $200,000 Bitcoin could happen within a year or two as well. We'll see if they're wrong. Standard Chartered is also extremely bullish. They're calling for $150,000, I think, Bitcoin as well. So while you're all worried and why you think the bull market's over, these analysts do not. Either does Titan of crypto. And let's look at this. This is the MicroStrategy over Bitcoin chart. It is surging. It has never been so high on a pair like this. Bonkers, and it just keeps going up. So I personally think some hedge funds that don't understand the infinite money glitch, they're getting squeezed right now, and they're being forced to chase because it is running a little too hot. Kenny the Great, thank you for coming. And a little bit of global macro news. This is the top countries by GDP per capita using Purchasing Power Parity over the last 10 years, i.e. from 2014 to 2024. It is stunning what has happened. It took me completely by surprise. And remember, GDP per capita is basically a measure of wealth of the country if that wealth is evenly distributed, which just isn't in most cases, but imagine it is. It means you'd be very wealthy if you live in some of these countries. And a couple of shout outs, just things that pop up for me from the chart, is Luxembourg. It leads in 2024 with a GDP per capita of 144,000, up from 107K in 2014. Ireland appears in the top rankings for 2024 with a GDP per capita of 134,000. They weren't even on the list 10 years ago. Now they're the third richest country. It's bizarre how things can change so fast. And Qatar, while it was the highest in 2014 at 143, it did drop to 112K in 2024. And that's probably why Qatar are probably embracing crypto behind the scenes right now to build that back up. And Singapore and Macau show significant growth, 134K in 2024 from 84K and 142K respectively. And these changes highlight shifts in economic growth and purchasing power among the countries over the next decade. Now, The reason this is fantastic is I want to see how this changes over the next 10 years because of AI and robotics. I guarantee you think this is a stunning change, it's going to be turned on its head. Those countries that lead in AI and robotics will smoke GDP per capita over the next decade. And we're going to watch this very carefully. Thank you all for coming. Every video is turned into a Substack with a podcast, 10 cents a day. Thank you to the team behind me that puts all that together. Hope you liked the show. That was OCTA for today, and I'll see you all tomorrow if I can find out where my screens are. There we are. And thank you as well to the mods in the chat. Everybody that made a little donation today. We always put it to good work. Thanks all. Have a great, fantastic Tuesday. Bitcoin is at 62,072, exactly where I started this video. Fell $200 and came back. So it's all because the good juju from you all. Thanks all for being here. I'll see you all. I'm trying to go outside. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.